Today, we shall be having a very exciting discussion with one panelist. Just to confirm before I will go ahead, confirm that you can see me and that you can hear me. Give a thumbs up. Fantastic. Thank you so much. We have over 50 people in the room, and I think now it's a good time to start. You're welcome to the Green Tech Digital Tech Careers Powering the Climate Transition. This webinar series is co-hosted by SE for All, Shortlist, in collaboration with ecosystem partners and allies. One thing that really gives me a lot of excitement about this session is the fact that we are in a pivotal moment on youth innovation in driving Africa's energy transition. Africa is the youngest continent on Earth, nearly 70% of its population under the age of 30. And so the youth board is not just a demographic statistic, but it's our greatest asset and untapped asset, I would say. But before I go into much more details about today's session and our panel session, which I also, in the course of the session, introduced our speakers, I would like to invite Toby. He will give the opening remarks and set the scene for today's session. Toby, if you're happy to take on, happy to receive you. You're welcome.
Thank you, David. Good afternoon, everyone, and a warm welcome to this webinar series. And I'm the Special Assistant to the CEO and Special Representative of the UN Secretary General for Sustainable Energy for All. We're proud to be partnering with Shortlist Futures for this vital conversation, one that speaks to one of the most powerful and promising forces for change on the continent, young Africans. And I say this not just as a development professional, but also as a young African myself. This is a topic that is deeply personal to me. What's at stake, but also what it means to grow up in a region filled with so much potential, yet where opportunity hasn't always kept the pace. So this session comes at a pivotal moment. Africa stands at a crucial crossroad with three defining trends. Number one, a rapidly growing youth population, the youngest in the world, with over 400 million people aged between 15 and 35. And where by 2035, there'll be more young Africans entering the workforce each year than the rest of the world combined. Two, the urgent need for energy access. Sub-Saharan Africa accounts for 85% of the population without access to electricity and 1 billion people without access to clean cooking. And thirdly, a digital transformation that is reshaping industries from how we generate and distribute energy to how we learn, how we work, and how we connect. By 2030, an estimated 230 million jobs in sub-Saharan Africa will skills. So together, these forces aren't just a challenge, but they're a launch pad. If we act boldly, they represent an opportunity to leapfrog into a future that is green, digital, and inclusive. Just as we did with mobile technology and e-money, Africa can lead the world again, but this time in sustainable energy and climate innovation. At Sustainable Energy for All, we're supporting Mission 300, an ambitious effort led by the World Bank and the African Development Bank to provide electricity to an additional 300 million people by 2030. Mission 300 represents more than just an expansion in energy infrastructure. It's also a platform for human capital revolution. Already, as of January, 12 African nations presented their energy compacts, which outlined their plans to scale up energy access through increased use in renewables and by attracting new investments. Countries like Nigeria, the DRC, and Zambia are just a few of the countries that demonstrated strong leadership in this effort. And then there's an additional 20 nations that are currently working on developing their compacts. And in total, 48 African countries endorsed the Dar es Salaam Declaration at the Mission 300 summit in January, collectively committing to expanding access to electricity and clean cooking across the continent. To match this leadership, the Mission 300 partners have pledged over $50 billion, making Mission 300 the largest public, private, and philanthropic partnership to date. But this mission goes far beyond energy infrastructure, as I said previously. It's a transformative opportunity to engage Africa's youth because achieving these goals will demand innovation, skills, and leadership from people, communities, and institutions across the continent. This is why webinars like this exist to really equip, connect, and inspire young Africans to lead the continent's green growth. It's also about helping you tap into careers, the businesses, and the ideas emerging at the intersection of climate, energy, and digital innovation. Digital transformation is more than just a tool for efficiency. It can be a catalyst for equity, from AI-powered energy planning to IoT-enabled clean tech. Digital solutions can unlock access for millions who have been left behind, and in doing so, deliver justice, economic, environmental, and generational. Mission 300 is projected to catalyze millions of jobs directly in clean energy, but also indirectly in finance, logistics, data, entrepreneurship, and so much more. So the real question becomes, how will you leverage the moment to not just join in the green economy, but to help build it? So today, I invite you boldly, ask the hard questions, share your ideas, because the future of Africa's energy transition won't be inherited. It should and will be co-created by its youth. Thank you.
Thank you so much for such a very remarkable opening. Indeed, you have set the tone that shows that Africa's transformation will only be achieved by by its own young people, and also with the clear fact that over 70% of the population is under the age of 30. So we must be able to leverage this untapped assets. In this session, we will spotlight youth, not just as future leaders, but as present-day change makers who are already shaping the continent's green economy through tech, data, entrepreneurship, and advocacy. We're here to explore one of the transformative intersections of our time, where digital innovation meets climate action. And as we do that, we reflect on three essential questions. What are Africa's achievements and challenges in reaching Net-Zero? We've seen strong momentum from increased electrification in parts of East and West Africa to groundbreaking decentralized energy solutions. But we still have over 600 million people globally who still lack access to electricity. And many young Africans are not excluded from this. But guess what? We have an opportunity for young people to transform these indicators through jobs and skills. Two, how is the demand for green skills shifting the job market for young Africans? The energy sector is no longer just wires and turbines alone, but it's about artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, geospatial data, and machine learning. The future of work in climate technology is already here. New roles are emerging in software development, data science, and digital energy systems. Roles that you and I can step in with the right tools and support. Thirdly, what strategies can young people adopt today to build committed expertise? The path forward includes technical training, upskilling, mentorship, and entrepreneurship support. But it also includes something deeper, a mindset of agility, curiosity, and collaboration. The innovation we need to achieve as SDG7 won't come from one sector or one solution. It comes from partnerships, from policy, from people like you in the room. This session is more than discuss. It's a call to action, a platform to connect you with sector leaders, startup innovators, policy makers, and each other. Whether you're a student, a recent graduate, a job seeker, or a budding entrepreneur, our goal is clear: to equip with insights, inspiration, and access to real opportunities that catalyze Africa's green and digital future. Friends, let's get started. Joining me in this conversation today are four remarkable women: Alice, Serena, Fiona, and Albena. And it's a pleasure to have you all join us today. So, Alice, we'll start with you. Give us a brief introduction on yourself, how you're transforming the world, and what are your contributions towards the reality as DG7. And from you, we'll go to Fiona, Albena, and Serena. Alice, over to you.
Thank you so much, David, and thank you everyone for the invitation and for organizing such a relevant webinar and on such a relevant topic. My name is Alice Uamalia. I'm an energy specialist here at C4All, working with various data analysis regarding energy system modeling, or as well focusing on buildings specifically. So being cooking or cooling, anything that has to do energy for buildings. This is one of my key focus. And I'm very excited today on today's topic because it touches a little bit on those topics that I usually work on. So David, I was a little bit, couldn't hear properly, but I think I'm just gonna go straight to my presentation, dig deeper into the topic, and then I'll pass the mic to my other co-panelists, if that's okay. So for some on your answer on some of your questions, I'm going to start on how the digital technology like AI and specifically Internet of Things has been driving or can drive innovation and transforming job opportunities for youth in Africa sector. So starting on specifically Internet of Things, which is something that we've been a little bit working on here at the C4All, and has provided some very interesting insights. So just quickly, just to define what it is. So this is the interconnection of physical devices, vehicles, or appliances, and other physical things that are enclosed with sensors, software, or network connectivity, which allows them to gather and share data. So this is coming back to some of the topics that we're talking about. We've seen at AC4All from our experience that this is something that is being more and more used, and there's a need for it in energy and agriculture, specifically in Africa. And worldwide, globally, the use of IoT in agriculture, for example, has been widely deployed and developed, but this is still underdeveloped in Africa. And a current challenge is how to increase agriculture yields for an ever-growing population, and how to mitigate some of these climate change issues, which again highlights the need to move towards more precision agriculture. So what does this mean for youth in Africa? We know that, again, as Toby and yourself mentioned, David, that young Africans are expected to constitute about 42% of the global youth population by 2030. So almost half of the global youth population will be based in Africa in a couple of years, essentially. And according to FAO, they estimate that agriculture is the only sector of the economy that is capable of absorbing this workforce. So based on that, we're starting to see some of the key needs and synergy evolving from this and related to the topic of the day. Again, bringing in IoT in energy and agriculture. And as I've mentioned, this is something that we've already started to see in our work at SC4All. So we have a couple of projects looking at cold chain for agriculture, for example, where private and public partners have highlighted the need of being able to monitor and do an energy audit of what this type of appliances or this type of energy services would require to be able to build and scale up, energy systems that would actually correspond to the need on the ground. So this could be being a standalone system to be able to provide for a walk-in community cold storage, or just understanding what the mini grid, demand for mini grid is when it comes to, for example, providing energy for cooking or lighting or, for different household usage and productive use of energy. So we just started to see that just, in terms of Internet of Things and energy in Africa, there are clear needs. Taking, for example, with agriculture, where you see already a nexus of things. Talking about AI, in Africa, I think I was doing a quick research before the webinar. I think in terms of data centers present in Africa, we have about less than 1% of the global data centers are present in Africa. And with AI rising very quickly, this is something that, would have to be changed rather quickly. And there is opportunity as well there for the youth to be involved into the construction, not only constructing, but starting to understand where, if we are to join the race of AI and data centers, what is the energy needed, where does this energy goes, and how does it, how can we distribute it to fully support the trend and the construction of data centers, so we can be part of the emerging trend. And this is something that would require different skills, being soft skills and technical skills, understanding, energy system engineering, artificial intelligence, machine learning, all sort of these classic things, but also starting to think a little bit outside of the box, again, going back to the IoT, where we can join some of the sectors that might not be super evident as, key needs and potential areas of focus, but starting to think outside of the box and seeing where the need is and how to provide it and connect it to these emerging trends of IoT and AI. I'm seeing that my time is running up, so I will take a quick break and then open the floor as well to my co-panelists. But thank you so much for the question.
Thank you so much. Abena?
Hi, good morning. Well, it's still morning in Ghana. I'm happy to be here, really excited to be here. My name is Abna Beidu. I am the CFO, so the Chief Financial Officer of Wahoo Mobility Limited. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of Wahoo, but Wahoo is, well, we like to see ourselves as being at the intersection of climate action and inclusive transport. So what we do is that we manufacture here in Ghana, in our factory, we manufacture electric bikes, and we also offer them on, an inclusive option to delivery riders and other gig mile workers. So essentially, even though I'm in the finance space, on a daily basis, I would say I witness firsthand, bold ideas, strong financial strategies, and, how the skilled youth are reshaping Africa's sustainability story. And so today, I'll just share a bit about what Wahoo is doing in the green tech space. I think I would say Wahoo has a medley of innovators. Our company has significantly about 90% youth within the company, and we are quite interested in what the youth can bring on board. We believe that Africa has the talent and that it's essential that we harness the talent that we have in Africa to be able to develop in the green tech space. In addition to manufacturing the e-bikes, what we also focus on is battery tech. So as the market has evolved into EVs, it's become even more critical. What is the mainstay of an EV? The main thing that an EV runs on essentially is the battery. And so we have also moved into the area of battery tech in terms of product development as well. I also like to share a bit about green financing and what the challenges are that various entrepreneurs would, encounter as they want to access finance. As most entrepreneurs, you'd realize it's difficult, a little more difficult in Africa than in other places to access financing as well. So I'm sure when we get to that point, I would like to
Before we
share.
even get to it,
Yeah.
just before we even get to the challenges, because of course, we can't really achieve can't really transition effectively and achieve SDG7 without the right kind of financing. And I know that you bring a lot of spotlight into some of the pain points that entrepreneurs would you typically go through. But just before we go into the second section of the question or the discourse, we'd like to hear from Fiona and Serena as well. Fiona, let's get to meet you and know how you're transforming the world from an SDG7 lens. And afterwards, we'll get to you to Serena. Thank you.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here. My name is Fiona Mugambi. I'm the head of growth and partnerships at Octavia Carbon, where we design, build, and deploy direct air carbon capture machines. So basically, what these machines do, or what this deep tech does, is remove the excess amount of CO2 from the atmosphere. And as many of you in the climate space know why, currently the CO2 levels in the atmosphere have exceeded their levels. That's why we are experiencing the worst effects of climate change right now. So for us, we use climate tech to reverse the adverse effects of climate change. So that's what we do.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for keeping this very short, Fiona. Serena, over to you.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Very nice to be here and to speak on this panel on a timely matter. So I'm Serena. I'm the portfolio manager of the GALE research program. GALE stands for Gender and AI Livelihoods Program. So what we are trying to achieve through GALE is essentially being able to answer the question, how can we use AI to improve low-income women livelihoods in sub-Saharan Africa? It's a partnership that we are driving between Shortlist, Futures, and the Gates Foundation. We have started this year, and our objective is to essentially identify in the ecosystem of sub-Saharan African innovators those that have already been applying AI in their solution. So once we see that those solutions are in a way targeting low-income women and have shown early signs of positive impact, our goal is to scale those solutions and then start gathering insights that can then be shared with the wider ecosystem to encourage wider adoptions of those solutions. And happy to talk about it more during the panel discussions.
Thank you so much, Serena. It's such a pleasure. Allow me to say that this is a panel of the future because we're hearing AI, we're hearing carbon capture. These are conversations that were not mainstreamed some 1 decade ago, or even some couple years ago. And it just shows how important this sort of conversation. I'm really grateful to have the expertise that we have represented in the room. And Fiona, if you allow me, can you just give us a bit more deep dive into how your organization is, the technology works, and how are you actually deploying this? And if you can even provide some insights around costing, and also its role in helping drive a clean and better energy future.
Yeah, happy to that. That's a very good question. So basically how direct air carbon capture works, basically air passes through a filter. The filter selectively traps the carbon dioxide. And then once carbon dioxide is trapped, this carbon dioxide has two use cases. You can either inject it underground where you have the right rock, and that's especially basaltic rock, which is good for carbon sequestration. And another use case is utilization. So for example, this carbon dioxide can be put in fizzy drinks like the, whether it's the beer, the Coca-Cola, it can be used to kill cement, it can be used in sustainable aviation fuels. So basically, there's a lot of use cases for this carbon dioxide. And that's how the technology works. When you talk about deployment, there are various things you need to think about. So the reason why we're actually here in Kenya, it's because it's the world's best place to deploy this technology and to actually scale it. And there are a few things you think about. Number one, direct air capture, the technology itself is very energy intensive. It's notorious for its high energy demand. And because of that, you need to ask yourself, where can you get this clean farm power? And Kenya is well known because it has a very impressive renewable energy stack, from geothermals to solar with no seasonality, with very great wind speeds as well. So because of that, it makes sense to deploy it here in Kenya. And the other thing you think about is with this captured carbon, where can you store it underground? So there are very few places in the world where you have that great geology to store this carbon dioxide. And Kenya is also very lucky to have the Rift Valley, where you have this great geology. So you find that you have this very good mix of the geology, and you also have the renewables. Now, the other thing, which is something which we are very proud of, is the human capital here in Kenya is incredible. We have, Kenya is just coming out of, it's the hub called the Silicon Savannah. We're just emerging from our fintech industry, and now we're going into, clean tech, where you have there's a lot going on in the e-mobility space. And now we're also seeing a lot of engineers are now transitioning. So the high skill talent here in Kenya is key to actually scaling this. So that is why it makes Kenya the world's best place to deploy this technology. And for context, we are the first ones in the global south and the fourth in the world. So I hope that can also give you some form of framing of where we are in terms of much as we are really affected by climate change. We are also solution providers, and not just and it's not just solution providers on the service industry, but deep tech, climate tech solution providers.
Thank you so much, Fiona, for putting a lot more insight into it. And yeah, we're very proud of the development we're seeing in Kenya, and kudos to the work that you're doing and championing and in that part of the world. And speaking about e-mobility, let me ask Abena, when can you help demystify this e-mobility sector? I mean, through the quality of work that you do at Wahoo, what are the specific skills that young people can look forward to in terms of honing, to help transform or contribute meaningfully to that sector? And why do you think it's important? And what are the opportunities you see that you can share to our audience currently in the room? Thank you.
Hi, yes, great. I'm happy to help with that. So, a tech company like Wahoo, for instance, you still have all the various roles you'd find in any company. So, as much as there's the perception that you need to be a tech person, or you need to have this sort of experience to be able to work in a green tech company. There are accountants in a green tech company, there are administrators in a green tech company as well. So there are all the various roles you'd find in any other company. But of course, specific to what we do, we typically would look at battery systems analysts. We'll be looking at electrical engineers, assembly engineers, and quite recently, if you realize, a lot of the tech companies are also into the softwares as well. So as much as we are building the tech, building the bikes, building the batteries, we also have an app. And so software front end developers, back end developers are also, there are other opportunities that we have within the company setup. But I think one thing I'd also like to add is that it's essential that the youth are a bit more open-minded about some of these jobs. So for instance, we have in our company an electrical engineer who is the head of software. So he found that as an interest. He studied it on his own. He got the skills that he needed. He shadowed one of our software developers, and now he's actually heading up the department. He's launched an app and all of that. So I think it's also essential for the youth to be very open-minded about green tech opportunities. There's a myriad of opportunities, but there's also what you can create for yourself within the industry. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Agana, because I was thinking I need to learn how to ride a bike in order to really function in that sector.
No, you do actually.
So thank you so much for providing so much more context to that. Thank you so much. And Serena, I'm just thinking, what are the most important steps to ensure that that AI solutions for green tech and climate resilience are inclusive and truly reflect the needs of the diverse communities that are impacted by it, especially in Africa?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think it's important to build solution by having the end user in mind and meet people where they are. I think we don't build technology for technology's sake. We build technology for people. And concretely, how do you do that? Is that, first of all, you avoid solutioning for a problem without validating it first with the people that ultimately are affected by that problem. And concretely, how you do that is you start co-creating with them from the jump. You understand their needs, you validate their needs with them, and only once that is clear, you move to the actual building of the solution. Another important thing to say is that you need to build your solution with the right data. You cannot build an inclusive solution if the data is not inclusive. So it's important also there to make sure that the data is including local languages, is including cultural nuances, is including also, in this specific case, climate-related specificities and agricultural realities of different areas of different regions. And concretely, how you can do that is you can compensate farmers, you can compensate people that are involved in the green space to actually provide you with context engineering and also data validation. And then lastly, I just want to say that to build effective solutions, you also need to understand that local challenges can impact accessibility. So you can build a solution, but if you want to scale it across Africa, you need to understand that different regions have different infrastructure. So you cannot build for fiber. If you want to serve people that maybe don't have fiber access, you need to understand how you should build for a 2G network, low bandwidth network. You need to understand that you need to build your interfaces with an idea that people that will interact with it can have different level of literacy. Therefore, some people will prefer interacting with text, other people might prefer interacting with voice, and this will actually be enabled thanks to AI. We are seeing through Gale that there are some use cases where we are indeed putting forward the ability of implementing solution in local languages, and at the same time using voice capabilities to break some barriers that are currently preventing some, I would say, marginalized people to access tech.
Thank you so much for that response, Serena. Very helpful. And I'm just thinking now to you, Alice, thinking about SE for All's OBI tool. A few questions come to mind, and it'd be great to hear your thoughts on this. One, pardon my question, is more like a double-edged sword. One, how does this tool leverage AI and open spatial data to bridge energy planning data gaps in developing regions? And what impact are we seeing, when it comes to its ability to help enhance decision-making in rural and urban development? And also, how do you see this tool transforming and meaningfully contributing towards the energy transition in the continent? So happy to hear your thoughts very quickly on this question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. No, that's a good question. And let's see. So just a quick a quick presentation of the OBI tool. So the Open Building Insights. This is basically an interactive online platform running on the IBM cloud. It's a collaboration between SE for All and IBM, and who this collaboration developed it. And what this tool does is to visually consolidate data in an interactive map, as I mentioned, providing information related to buildings in different countries. So the platform essentially address urban planning challenges, such as, providing building location, providing the height of the building, the footprint area of the building, and the usage type. And this has been this type of data have been lacking in many countries. And so this really provides a fantastic catalog at a granular level. So very happy that it exists now. And then maybe since we're talking about technical skills and for anyone who's interested and audience, so the way it works is that it consolidates models created by the German Aerospace Center, which estimates the building height. So this is usually like via satellite images. It also uses open energy maps, which provide information about electricity status and consumption. And this is all packaged under a collaboration, again, as I mentioned, between IBM and NSC4All. So what all this means and what it is that it helps determine whether a building is residential or non-residential. And it sounds very, easy at first, but this is actually very key to determine the energy needs of certain urban areas. So again, this is something that has been lacking for a while, and through OBI tool, this is something that we can now be able to identify. This is key information for energy planners, for example, first of all, to be able to understand the energy consumption per type of building. It's very, very important, but it can also be very interesting to various other stakeholders, such as architects, carbon and climate change analysts, since we're talking about carbon markets here, smart grid specialists, again, understanding how to supply and distribute energy, or even such as insurance companies. So again, it sounds very, maybe at first a little bit not very, how to say, at least for me, it took me a little while to understand how this type of
technical.
Exactly. So how can the digital tools like OBI further accelerate Africa's energy transition? That's a good question. I think some of the use cases that we've seen and I can share, for example, to give a quick overview of this question. So again, as I mentioned, being able to identify potential roof surfaces. For example, we're using it to understand the benefits of providing urban cooling that doesn't require specifically energy. So being able to say like in this area, we'll plant more trees, for example, and lower down the urban heat in that area without using too much electricity. Or, in this area, we can provide solar kits because we have now access to the roof surfaces area, or even just in terms of energy planning in general, this has been super helpful. We've also using this actually OBI tool in India, where we can identify informal settlements to be able, again, to support with energy and urban planning. So there's different areas that can be used in terms of supporting energy transition. Yeah, if you're interested in this field, I would recommend to get, more interested or more familiar with these type of tools. There are different ones. OBI is one of them. And then see how you can be utilized and also recommend everyone to think a little bit outside of the box, how it can be used, because there's so many different areas of how this AI powered tool can be leveraged.
It can work.
So, yeah, exactly.
Brilliant. And just looking at the chat box, someone has a very important question. How can we access the tool? Do you have any thoughts on this?
Good question. This is a tool that is already running. We have a website. I'm happy to drop the link to it. I think this is the easiest way to share it for now. And then, yeah, I recommend everyone to log in and play. It's a free tool, which we love. And yeah, go ahead, play with it and see how you can utilize it in your everyday life.
Thank you so much, Alice. Simon Mochina, there you have it. The link will be dropped on the chat just before the end of the session, so you can play with it and see how it works. Also, reading through a couple questions, I see that some people are already networking. Dandy Katolo is saying we have a summit coming up and we really just want to network with people and have you participate. I'm very sure that we have more than enough collaborators on the chat, and so look out for a response to your question. And just before we go through the next round of questions, I would also like to take this. It's a question by an anonymous attendee, and it says, there is a widespread issue in the solar industry across Africa, where a lack of trained on-ground engineers leads to delays in maintenance and repair of solar systems. As a result, many installations operate below capacity or fall into despair. Are there any initiatives or strategies being considered to ensure proper maintenance of existing solar infrastructure? This is a very important question, and I'll just leave the floor to any panelist that wants to take it. Serena, if you have some thoughts on this short list lens, feel free. And Fiona, if you want to give some thoughts. And Abena, how are you guys ensuring that your systems are not failing? So in case you have a response to this question, please feel free to unmute your mic and proceed. Thank you. Who wants to take it?
Okay, I'll share a bit about what we do here, and I'm sure someone else
Thank
can talk about how to make sure it doesn't actually fail. Our factory is actually completely off the grid, so we are fully solar, but we have contracted a third party that maintains our solar systems. But we do have the odd time when, you know, the system, I would say, fails, because obviously it's been cool weather for some time or no sunlight. I was actually, you know, a bit of a novice in that industry. So I was like, okay, how does this feel? You know, did the sun not shine? And so what we came to realize was that it was important to also store a lot of the power, which we do now through some big batteries that we have. So as I would say, a company that is utilizing a solution, this is how we have dealt with it. I'm sure maybe someone a bit more technical can give some insights as well.
Fiona, Serena, do you want to give some thoughts on it?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to jump in. We are not exactly in the solar industry, but I mean, I can still apply some of the work we do because at Octavia, we, more than 60% of our workforce are either engineers or technicians. So, I mean, basically, even what we do to ensure we don't experience any delays with facility maintenance, installations of, the next generation of machines, what we do is we ensure our communities, especially the vocational training institutes, we ensure that they've gone through a rigorous apprenticeship program. So it's also easy to onboard this talent with Octavia. So we've set up a very good talent pipeline within our communities. Apart from that, we also ensure that much as we've set up these apprenticeship programs, is that we also have a regulatory agency here in Kenya called EPRA. So we also ensure that they get certified with EPRA as well, whether it's getting the solar licenses or the electrician licenses. So what that does is it ensures that they do not only have the skills to work at the site, but they're also regulated with our national agency here.
Thank you. If I may just give the participant who asked this question a business idea. Here in Nigeria, we have companies that are just set up to build, operate, and maintain solar systems. And so if you see this as a prevalent challenge, it might just be your motivation to start a company that would train, identify young people, train them, partner with organizations like Shortlist and SE for All, and that could provide a lot of insight into that have already worked extensively in building curriculars and other sorts of competency materials that can be leveraged, and position yourself out there to renewable energy companies that may not want to deal with the headache of maintenance and charge a premium on it. So you can let us know if you want to go ahead with that, and of course the team is more than happy to support. Again, I see here, talking about networking, some people, please, panelists, I also invite you to the chat box to also see some persons want to connect with you more closely and get in touch with you. So please look out for those that are asking. Another question that has been asked here is, what is the link for Mission 300 and how does the job in the sustainable energy transition, how are they tailored for youth development? Alice, do you want to give your thoughts on this particular question? The link between Mission 300 and jobs for youth in sustainable energy transition. How is this tailored for youth development?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. I'm also going to be looking at Toby, who I think has maybe a little bit more information on M300 work. I'm not sure, Toby, if you see any immediate answer while I'm still thinking about a better, a good answer.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to take
Right.
it. I think so. I think what's interesting about Mission 300, it's not that Mission 300 in and of itself automatically creates the jobs. I think the momentum that it brings really shows us the different avenues to which, okay, how are we actually going to achieve this goal of achieving the access for 300 million people? And the 300 million people, by the way, is just half of the energy access challenge on continent. And that really spans from, okay, you'll need, in some countries, you might need an energy transition and investment plan. That means, okay, you need to train people who will be able to do this on ground and with government, but also maintain that. You'll need to scale up the amount of developers on continent. You either need to kind of 20x the amount of developers already on ground. And that is really the opportunity of how do we create the local capacity? Because right now, most of the developers operating, and these are mini grid developers operating on continent, are foreign companies who then subcontract to local developers. And so it's that there's the opportunity to really build the local capacity. So that's really what we're trying to do as part of Mission 300, to make sure in SC4All utilize our position as the secretariat to say, how do we keep local content and the youth involved in the story of Mission 300 and the energy access story on continent? Because it's not going to be sustainable if we're always consistently waiting for external support and external help, but really utilizing it to say, okay, this is really a platform where you can expand jobs. And that's from, the direct jobs, as we said, in terms of, the either being a mini grid developer or working in maintenance, to actually thinking about the financing structures that would be needed to scale the amount of money needed to make this happen. So I hope that answers your question. So it's very much, think of Mission 300 as kind of a platform to move things forward rather than, okay, rather than Mission 300 creating a job listing, if that makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense and much more. Energy is the oxygen, I always like to say, that powers industries, whether health or education or agriculture or infrastructure. Energy in itself is an enabler. And what Mission 300 seeks to achieve is to say, hey, 300 million people at least are being disenfranchised as a result of lack of access, and now want to provide real access that will catalyze productivity. So catalyzing productivity would mean creating jobs for those who want to typically work an 8 to 5, but creating also an enabling environment for entrepreneurs to thrive. And again, because of its creating that environment for the sustainability of different sectors, you see jobs emerging in smart agriculture, for example. You see jobs emerging in different types of other sectors that are there, you see companies even emerging, mini-grid developers coming to say, hey, I think I understand the market and I can play as a contributor in this market. And so different sorts of sectors would unravel different types of jobs. And so see Mission 300, just to add to what Toby had said, as an enabler to achieve such. So thank you so much, Toby, for that response. And I'm just thinking,
David, if you allow
Okay.
me, I wanted to also provide a perspective on the answer on the question related to the maintenance and repair of solar system.
Serena, please
That's okay.
proceed.
Yeah,
Please.
so I wanted to say that another way of seeing this, and I'm more talking about the solution perspective, is that you can start thinking about how AI can support in solving certain issues, and I can speak to that because that is where I'm focusing on. So one way to see it is that you can now use AI to build predictive maintenance system where you know about something before it's actually broken, that you need to go in this specific place to do maintenance, and then can definitely save downtime. And then the second part that I want to highlight as well is that for existing engineers that maybe need additional trainings for improving their technique in maintenance, you can also think of developing a chatbot that can provide automatically trainings related to specific topics of the maintenance. And that chatbot can ultimately, on the one end, meaning supporting those engineers to get better skills, and then at the same time also indicating, following a predictive maintenance system, where are the areas where they should get in time to operate before actually the solar system is broken and therefore creates downtime.
Thank you so much, Serena. I think I really like the perspective of even being able to preempt some of these maintenance needs before they arise, and leveraging AI, machine learning, and Internet of Things. Absolutely. In fact, when you look at some of the companies some of the transmission companies have what we call smart grids, and they have different set of systems that are installed within their network to help predict for predictive maintenance purposes. And so this has already been operational, and I think that that's one way to go. Just as we try to wrap up, because I see very exciting questions, and I want to ensure that no question is left unanswered. Here, there's a question around the use of biomass energy in Africa is rather very low, despite the region having a huge potential for growth in this energy form. How and what will be done by Mission 300 and other countries to take advantage and support growth in this area? Please, the floor is open. Anyone feel free to chime in on this question. The use of biomass. And we have much more questions coming in. Sorry, Toby, we have another question. I'm doing a research on energy storage and conversion, specifically on battery. I'm very interested, please. Who can I reach directly? Okay, well, talking about networking, Meti is asking that you share a contact, he wants to get in touch. I'm guessing, Meti, you're saying that you want to be in touch with Abena. I'm very sure that Abena will be kind enough to share her details on the chat box. But Toby, please proceed on the question on biomass, if you have any thoughts on it. Thank you.
On the and I'm answering this from the Mission 300 perspective. So as part of Mission 300, as countries sign up for it, they create these things called energy compacts, which are really their policy plans and the targets that they are going to commit to in order to achieve, depending on the country, the X amount of people they want to electrify by 2030. So within that, different countries will iron out, okay, what does this energy mix look like? And for some, it's within the energy compacts, and I will share the link to where you can find the 12 energy compacts that were launched in January. But it's also on the policy level, working with the banks through kind of the World Bank and working with the countries through World Bank and AFDB to see what does an ideal energy mix for your country make sense, and how much is it going to cost you? And it's always thinking about like the least cost way for electrification. So I can't speak to kind of a specific country's situation because this is very country dependent and depending on what pathway makes sense for them cost wise. But it'd be interesting to kind of look off the top of my head. I don't think any of the 12 countries so far have outlined biomass, but please do check out the energy compacts. And I'm sure that that's something that will come up even as the 20 countries that are currently working on their compacts. Once those are launched, we'll be able to gauge, okay, who is saying that they're going to have a biomass target. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to say on that from the Mission 300 perspective. I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in.
Thank you so much, Toby, for that response. And yes, every country would transition based on specific sources that they have identified that they want to prioritize based on their policy lens and also based on the finance direction that they are going as a country. And so when it comes to biogas, I think you've hit the nail, or biomass, you've hit the nail on the head. We have a few more questions, but we are also pressed for time, and I would like to invite Josh very soon to give us his own closing remarks. So, as a way to wrap up, these conversations are not conversations that we can really finish. We have to pause at some point and continue at the next webinar or at a later time. But I would just like to come to you, Serena. How are you thinking about partnerships? How do you think partnerships can help us achieve this very strong goal and ambition that we have set for ourselves? And how do you see these partnerships also clearly weaving youth priorities and youth opportunities in them as your own closing statement? It'll be great to hear from you. Then we'll come to Alice, Fiona, and Abena as we try to wrap up the session. Over to you, Serena.
Yes, I think on my side, there is opportunity to understand how solutions can be built to address these challenges when it comes to the green economy and green tech specifically. I think there are a lot of opportunities when it comes to tech, building applications, integrating new technologies with on existing processes. And at the same time, I think the youth are digital natives, so they have a great perspective to bring in these discussions. I also feel like I didn't get the chance to mention it, but we are seeing different use cases in terms of how to match mentorship and, for example, support toward farmers in agriculture, etc. And so I think that the places where I feel like there are also opportunities in job creation is the business model where despite using technology to serve, I would say, low-income community, you will still need a mentor. You will still need a supervisor that will support those communities, and that is usually young people that want to not to have a classical job, but rather a job, for example, in agriculture, where they mentor the farmers, they provide them good farming strategies, and at the same time, they are a bit intermediate from the wholesalers that sell farming products with the farmers, and that allow them to basically earn money, make their own money, being flexible with their job. So that is just one example, and happy to, on a second moment, provide additional example. But I think we should start to identify processes and work paths that are not necessarily the standard one and form our own job opportunities. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Serena. Thank you. Alice?
That's a good question. I was thinking about it, and I think on the SC for All side, so we have sort of this approach of energy being the key driver behind and economic development. And I think with youth and the fact that Africa has such a huge potential in with the youth population that it has, I think starting to really integrate everything that we do, being all the sector, being agriculture to essentially urban planning, starting to have sort of that, where does energy kick in? How can I leverage it? And I think once we start thinking about it, we start to also realize that there still is some work to be done specifically to understand exactly the energy use, like really having that data in place. It still is something that I don't want to say that we're behind on it, but there's a huge opportunity, to leverage that, being through AI or super sort of like data analysis to really understand what are the needs, can energy kick in to support this economic development that we're moving towards. or being, again, as I mentioned earlier, IoT. I think we have a lot of opportunity, as Serena mentioned, we have a population that is very tech savvy in the youth population. And I see this as an emerging trend where, energy data is basically going to be the key driver in accelerating Africa, both economic and energy transition and development going forward. So this is a massive opportunity that we're sitting on, and looking forward to see how it goes forward.
Thank you so much, Alice. And Abena, just thinking about collaboration, but how can collaboration also help address some of the funding gaps that you have seen within this space? So way to wrap up.
Okay. So thanks for that question. I'm really passionate about financing when it comes to entrepreneurs as well, because it's hard. It's really hard, and it's harder with green tech. But we can't build the future of green tech if we don't finance it. And so there's a lot of perception around, startups, especially in the green tech space. There's a perception of risk. Obviously, there's long payback horizons, and there's what we call in finance the valley of death. And that's like the period between your R&D, your pilot, your prototype, your testing, and actually going to commercialization. And that's a very difficult period, to access funding for a lot of startups. And I think collaboration is key. It's important for entrepreneurs to collaborate not only with existing companies to be able to sort of piggyback on their track records, but also to collaborate with other startups. So, for instance, at Wahoo, we have focused on the electric bike. We have an app, but we also collaborate with other startups that are setting up swap stations, that are setting up, charging stations for the batteries, and also in other fields. There are startups that are doing insurance for e-bikes. There are other startups that are doing e-mobility. So it's important for the different startups to also collaborate so that their projects tend to hold a bit more water when you're accessing finance. And maybe just to wrap up, I want to say that there are opportunities. So as difficult as this may be, as a startup in this space, what you need is patient capital. You need capital that is willing to wait for you to do your pilots, to do your testing and all of that. And so entrepreneurs should be looking more at concessionary loans. There's a lot of green financing these days from the regular banks. So, concessionary loans, grants are very key, but again, collaborations are important when it comes to applying for some of these grants, because one entrepreneur may not be able to meet all the qualifications, but together, once you collaborate with others, you should be able to, a good proposition together to be able to access some of these grants. So the opportunities are there. The companies need to be financed, and I'm happy to, speak with anybody in that space that would like some advice on how to finance their startup.
Yes, brilliant. Thank you so much, Abena. And just what you said just reminded me of something that was shared at the Africa Climate Week in 2022, where the speaker at the time representing the development bank was talking about sometimes the cost of doing business and why entrepreneurs should leverage the opportunity of coming in consortiums to apply for funds, because sometimes it helps them with the risk assessment. It also helps when they see that the risk is shared across competent partners. You're likely to get the funds than just trying to be a lone army. Now, the word is not competition. Yeah, in terms of business, you may say, oh, we're in competition. But honestly, we must embrace collaboration if we want to achieve the kind of results that we seek in order to scale our enterprise. Thank you so much, Abena. Toby, I see your hand, but just before I come to you, Fiona, please, you have the floor. Collaboration, and how do you see us going about it as you wrap up?
Sorry, I lost the last sentence when you were calling me.
I said collaboration, and how do you see us working together, going forward to achieve the goals before us? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll make this short. I mean, being a climate tech startup, it's hard, especially if you're in deep tech, where some of this tech, many people believe that it should only come from the Silicon Valley. And I think one of the ways we can really collaborate amongst each other is maybe see that we actually have the talent to develop these things. As Octavia, what we are doing, when we see any new startup coming up that is less than 1 year old and, they are in this space of ours, we provide a lot of mentorship with them because we see that, so to get away from the perceived risk, the narrative ruling for Africa, which, kind of, takes away the funding that would have, a lot of funding that would have already come here is, we need to show that we are actually a force and that, we can be able to build these things ourselves. So I think my way of defining collaboration is building the young upcoming startups that are still in the space and show, and, in almost a sense, kind of be their guarantors, especially in that valley of death phase, which Aben has talked about. And, just really hand holding there. And apart from that, I think also the VCs in Africa also need to come together and, to be able to amass more capital. Because when you look at the VC space in Africa, it's not the same VC space in US or the VC space in Europe. So I think there's also a lot of innovative financing needs to be discussed at that level as well.
Thank you so much, Fiona, for your response. I see more questions, but unfortunately, we may not be able to take additional questions. But I have good news, and I will give you this good news after Toby speaks. Toby, over to you.
So what I just wanted to say in terms of financing and also collaboration is the work that needs to be done on creating the enabling environment for it. So it's also kind of being on the other end, I guess, to the startup space and kind of the work that we're doing at SE for All to create that, whether it's actually training and speaking to ICs about, okay, the perceived risks that you have for Africa, these are perceived, and actually understanding what is happening on ground. Also kind of creating platforms for pooled due diligence. A big part of the cost for a lot of projects and startups is the cost to actually go through due diligence for multiple different investors. A lot of people don't have the time or the capital to do that. So actually working with one of the things we're working on at the moment is working with the government to create a platform where you can have quite a set of criteria for key due diligence that a lot of investors could go to and say, okay, these companies check these boxes. So companies don't have to go through multiple layers of due diligence. And then I was also going to say, in terms of creating the financing space, also having people going into the green finance space. It's like, okay, how do you go, people that are then doing work in ESG due diligence, going into VC and the tech spaces themselves. And again, speaking to kind of widening the perception of what a green job is. Also working at development finance institutions, because they're also key to creating kind of the blended finance structures that would be needed, which mixes in private capital, development capital, and philanthropic capital as well. So kind of thinking about broadening what green finance could look like and the faces within that, and working on financing skills as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Literally, I think I'm almost tempted to say we have to pay Toby for such gems that she has just given us. Thank you so much, Toby, for pointing us in the direction I think that would be very useful and critical. I said I had good news. Friends, we may not be able to take additional questions, but you can be sure that we have a solution for you. Feel free to write us at wyff@seforall.org. If you have any questions that haven't been answered, please feel free to write to wyff@seforall.org, and you can be sure that the team would definitely respond to your email. On that note, I would like to yield the floor to Josh Oxby as he gives us the closing remarks for this session. Josh, over to you.
Thank you very much, David. And I just want to express my deep gratitude to all of our speakers for their compelling insights, and to the organizers, SE for All and Shortlist Futures, for really creating this vital space of dialogue and discovery. All too often, conversations around green stills stay at the surface level really focusing narrowly on just jobs and occupations without actually grappling with deeper questions. But today, I believe at least that we did something a little bit different here. We went deeper and we actually tackled the how of skill development, the why of inclusion, and the what are the meaningful pathways forward. I think we can all agree that the stakes could not be higher, and we find ourselves living through a convergence of transformative shifts in technology, energy, employment. This all comes at a moment when the global youth population are reaching historic levels. We heard today that 9 out of 10 future jobs are going to require some form of digital skills, yet 60% of young people today lack those technical capabilities to meet this demand. And the challenge ahead is especially urgent in Africa, which I think we can all agree the youth wave is going to be the most defining democratic trend of this century. I think almost all of our speakers actually reflect on the fact that by 2035, more young people will be entering the workforce from the African continent alone than the rest of the world combined. And by 2050, which, just to remind us all, is only 25 years from now, 1 in 3 of the world's youth will be African. If we don't act now, if we don't scale skills, infrastructure, and employment pathways, this potential could quickly become a real crisis of ingrained exclusion, even more than we're seeing today. But the good news is that the solutions are emerging right here and right now. From AI-powered tools like the Open Building Insights platform for energy access planning, the youth-led innovations in e-mobility, agriculture, solar, and direct air capture, our speakers have shown us all that the green transition is not only a future goal, but it's already a reality. And for those tech-savvy young professionals across fields here today, I think we can all agree the message was really clear. We need to get more familiar with a broader range of digital tools and start thinking beyond conventional approaches. From training, identifying, and partnering with organizations as skill incubators, to leveraging AI as a strategic partner to enhance how we analyze, plan, and deliver solutions for sustainable energy access, it all comes down to creativity, critical thinking, and above all else, reimagining what's possible. Young people aren't waiting for opportunities, they're already creating them. They're not just the workforce of tomorrow, they're the innovators, entrepreneurs, dreamers, and leaders of today. As we accelerate progress towards SDG 7, reminding us all with our global stocktake less than a year from now, we must ensure that the energy transition is not only green, but also just, inclusive, and unapologetically youth-powered. I want to thank you all again for your time, your voices, your participation, and above all else, your commitment. Let's carry this momentum forward together with real purpose and urgency.
That's powerful. I think that's very powerful and inspiring note. We have come to the end of today's webinar. Friends, whether you're a student, a budding entrepreneur, unemployed, or someone who is just looking at transitioning jobs, I'm sure that this session has been very insightful. You have a role to play in advancing a cleaner and greener energy future for Africa and even globally. And right now, I'm sure you have all you need, all the tools you require, and even all the network you could leverage on, in order to achieve this. It's been such a pleasure moderating this panel with expert speakers. Thank you so much for bringing life to this conversation, for bringing depth to this conversation, for bringing insight to this conversation. And we're thankful to you for taking time out of your very busy schedules to ensuring what I believe will be a catalyst for global transformation via this dialogue. Until we come again with the next webinar series, the dialogue. Friends that have joined us, we couldn't have done this without you. And so we say a very big thank you to you for staying up to this time. We believe it has been enriching, and we look forward to having you on the next webinar. On that note, it's bye for now.